A slow, silent pan across a windswept steppe, the sun setting blood, red behind broken mountains, then a sudden cut to darkness, a sound, wet, organic, sickening. They thought they were ready. But nothing, not years of excavation, not decades of fieldwork, could have prepared them for what they unearthed beneath the ice. It was a death so raw, so intimate, that seasoned archaeologists dropped their tools and vomited on the spot. Thunder rolls, snow lashes across the screen, cut to gloved hands brushing away layers of permafrost. You see, the earth doesn't forget. Time may grind away at cities and silence languages, but under the right conditions, the cold, the dry, the sealed time can preserve the truth. And in the frozen wilderness of Siberia, truth waited, trapped in the belly of the earth. It started with a curious anomaly in the Kolymer region, a small depression in the ice-rich soil. Researchers were following ancient mammoth migration paths when ground-penetrating radar detected a hollow space less than 2 meters down. Expecting nothing more than perhaps an old burrow, they began to dig. Then the smell hit them, faint at first but unmistakable: rot. Old, wet human rot, preserved by time, awakened by science. One of them, a young field technician named Elena, pulled back a slab of frozen sediment and screamed. Beneath her, eyes stared back, not bones, not fossils, but eyes glassy, sunken, locked in an expression of horror. This was no simple burial, it was a death tableau, 7 bodies huddled in a tight circle, mouths open, limbs tangled like roots, all of them frozen in mid-motion as if trying to escape, but there were no tools, no fire pits, no signs of shelter, and something else, something deeply wrong. The smallest of the corpses, a child, had something in its throat. Not a bone, a finger, human. The initial reports never made it to mainstream media. The data was too raw, the implications too terrifying. This was no myth, no campfire tale of prehistoric cannibalism. This was direct evidence, DNA, matched, carbon-dated, unarguable. Roughly 13,000 years ago, during the final flickers of the last ice age, a small band of Homo sapiens faced the worst-case scenario. Not starvation, but isolation. They had been cut off, likely during a sudden blizzard or river collapse. No food, no fuel, no escape. Days turned to weeks. The cold gnawed at flesh. The snow never stopped. The bodies revealed more deep bite marks, not made by predators but by stone tools. Rib cages cracked open with precision, skull fragments missing, even marrow had been extracted. This wasn't survival cannibalism. This was systematic, it was cultural, and then came the worst part. One of the scientists, Dr. Mark Dorick, a leading paleogeneticist, discovered something horrifying inside the child's remains: parasites. Intestinal worms, ones that could only be transmitted through consumption of uncooked human flesh. That meant the cycle had turned inward, disease spread through desperation, death through slow digestion. The dig site was shut down for 2 weeks, not for preservation, but because members of the team were physically unable to continue. Some spoke of hearing whispers in the wind. Others had nightmares being buried alive in snow, chewing flesh they could not stop tasting. But history doesn't care about your comfort. Further excavations revealed that this wasn't an isolated case. In a limestone cave in what is now northern Spain, similar remains were discovered years earlier. The El Sidrón cave, 49,000 years ago. Neanderthals, this time a family group of at least 12. Their bones showed the same patterns: fractured femurs, missing tongues, burn marks. At first, scientists assumed ritual. A strange, symbolic burial. But then they looked closer, and what they saw shattered that theory. The butchery marks were consistent with butchering animals, not reverence, but utility. Even Neanderthals, often imagined as simple brutes, had reached a point where the line between life and horror blurred. And here's the cold, hard truth. Cannibalism wasn't rare in prehistory. It was a tool. A cultural adaptation. A final answer, when everything else failed. Archaeological layers across Europe, South America, and Asia reveal the same grim truth: polished bones, split for marrow, brain cavities scraped clean. But what made the Siberian sight so terrifying wasn't just the act. It was the emotion fossilized in flesh. You can see it in the mother's hand, frozen as if shielding her child, in the young man's outstretched arm, perhaps reaching for help that never came. They weren't monsters. They were humans just like us, trapped in an indifferent, brutal world. Why does it make experts vomit? Not because of the gore, but because of the recognition, the realization that under the right pressure, with enough hunger, any society, even ours, can fracture. You can see it in the ancient eyes, still locked in a final plea. You can feel it in the silence of the caves, where screams once echoed, and the earth remembers. The camera pans across ancient skeletons under glass, now kept in sterile museum drawers. Then flashes back a flickering reenactment of that final night. Snow howling outside, a mother cradling a child, surrounded by eyes too afraid to look away. We often imagine prehistory as a land of action, mammoths charging, saber-tooth stalking. But this was stillness, madness, the quiet unraveling of human dignity. And here's the twist in the knife. The more we study these events, the clearer it becomes they weren't accidents. These weren't one-time horrors. They were repeated, taught, passed down. In some ancient cultures, cannibalism held spiritual meaning. Among the Anasazi of the American Southwest, sites like Cowboy Wash reveal butchered human bones alongside cooking pots. Whether born of starvation or belief, the line between need and ritual blurs once again. But what if those ancient deaths still echo in us, not genetically, but deep in our cultural bones? The fear of hunger, the fear of the other, the fear of what we're capable of when the lights go out. You may never walk across a glacier or dig through bones soaked in time, but somewhere under your feet lies a world that remembers. And it doesn't judge, it simply waits. The music fades to a quiet hum, wind over tundra, fire crackling in the dark. So the next time you stare into the eyes of an ancient skull in a museum, ask yourself, what did they see in their final moment? And if the world crumbled tomorrow, how different would we be? Earth keeps the memories. We just choose when to remember them. The ice slowly closing back over the site, the eyes disappearing, silence. Some truths are buried for a reason, but some refuse to stay buried.